When you're watching Brave, this movie is one of the better mother daughter stories that I can really recall. And it's also just a great, like, solo Disney princess story that, like, really goes against what we come to know, which is that, like, they're all in some sort of way attached to a prince or a man of some kind, and this movie is like rejecting that idea, rejecting the idea that she needs to marry, or she has to like have suitors, or she has to follow a certain way of like of being a woman. And that's not, there's nothing wrong with any of the other Disney princesses. They work for what they were, but this one was really like just different, and it focused on the mother daughter relationship and how it can become toxic to one another. How their constant feuding isn't because they don't love each other. Well, it comes from like other outside things, you know what I mean? Like other men getting in the way, like the suitors, like politics, like how are we supposed to keep, you know, how are we supposed to live up to our royal heritage or fit a certain type of etiquette that we all have come to know and that we all understand about our way of life, you know what I mean? And in those times, like that was just the way it was. It was just, oh yeah, our daughter will marry whoever to kind of keep peace. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, marry my daughter. You know what I mean? Like, they were just like, take her. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then you know what I mean? We'll be unified. We'll be a team now. You know what I mean? No more war or violence and stuff like that. And here we have Merida, who's just like, forget all of that. I don't want any of them. I'm fighting for my own hand. And she just shows them all up in archery. And I think that was one of the better moments where you see that, like, oftentimes when we see like, and this is no like jab or anything, but it's like if you see like a woman like fighting and stuff, sometimes it's like, all right, well they're obviously playing it up a bit because it's like, they want her to feel strong and stuff like that. But here they have Merida with a very valuable skill in archery, okay? And it's about skill. It's about, you know, where she positions the arrow, and it's all about that, like that feeling, you know what I mean? And there's a high level skill to archery that, man, woman, it doesn't matter, right? You can both pull back on the thing and shoot it and stuff like that. So it all comes down to skill, and it's not inherently power based, you know what I'm saying? And that's one of the cool things about it, is that, oh, it hooks you. It's like, it's believable. It's like, oh, of course she can practice archery and be great at it, as opposed to like maybe practicing practicing fencing or sword fighting, right? Like up against somebody else who's bigger and stronger. It's like it doesn't matter how much skill or how much finesse she really puts into the sword. She's never going to be strong enough to like stop them or really defeat them. But in archery, she's able to like take her time. She's able to breathe right. She's able to position herself. She's able to read the wind and figure out like how the arrow's going to bend and how it's going to shoot, and how much force she can pull back on the bow, how close or how far she is, right? Those little intricate details are believable, and it comes with that skill. And so I think I definitely remember watching this movie and feeling like, okay, like she she's a high level, like she knows what she's doing, like she's at the top of the top, you know what I mean? And I never once doubted it or was like, oh, she wouldn't be able to do that, or it's impossible, none of that. It kind of felt like, yeah, like she practices more than the other guys. All the other guys sucked. You saw them shoot and they failed, and the only guy who actually hit the arrow, I mean hit the middle, uh did it by accident or just was kind of a fluke, you know what I mean? She precisely put the arrow where she wanted it to go, and it was just so satisfying to watch, and it was so cool to see. And rewatching it, I was just kind of like, yeah, that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? That scene where she shoots the she's walking down and she's shooting the arrows into the targets. It just so cool. Brilliant idea from the Pixar team and from the director, whoever came up with it. I mean, just absolutely so smart and a great way to kind of show off her personality in the best way possible. It's like if there was ever a scene that's like showing somebody's personality or like show don't tell, it's this one. You know what I mean? It's it's in the same thing as like Remy cooking the stew or the soup, right? You see the joy on his face. You see how much he's like how much effort he's putting into like cooking, and it's beautiful. And it's like this is Remy. This is who he is. This is what he loves, and you can see it on his face when he's doing it. And then compare that with Merida here. You see the fierceness. You see how skilled she is. You see how strong she is. You see how effortless she makes it all seem. She just pulls back and then she hits it and then she moves on to the next. And then she hits it and moves on to the next, right? Like it's so easy for her. And then that violent stare that she gives her mom when she turns. And then that kind of like they suck out the air in the room or the sound and then you see them face to face staring each other down and just like both having that mean mug on their face of like, you know what I'm saying? Man, that's so good. That's cinema. That's really good stuff. So that was a scene of like show don't tell, right? And the mom, obviously being the mom, is trying to like calm down her daughter and like be like, yo, stop it, end it. You know what I mean? Chasing her down, but she's doing it anyways. And then she's yelling at her like, don't loosen another arrow. And then she lets it go. She not only hits the target in the middle, right? But she shoots it dead on straight through the other guy's arrow, through to the other side, in the middle, like beautiful, absolutely perfect. Now, is that realistic? No, but who cares? That's just so cool. Absolutely perfect. And I thought that it was just a genius idea of precision, of showing off her skills in archery and how perfect how perfect she is at this. You know what I mean? How passionate she is about it, and what does it really all mean? Why do this archery thing? Well, she's fighting for herself. This is who she is, right? She just showed up all of the other men and just showed that she's better at archery than all of them. And the mom is kind of like trying to temper her daughter down and try to like, yo, don't let the men feel bad that you're better at them than this. Be a lady, be a princess, do the respectable thing, do the right thing, and not, make a fuss and show off and da 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 da. But Merida, she didn't listen to any of that. She just like, screw, I'm gonna do whatever I want. You know what I mean? And I don't want to marry. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to follow the royal etiquette. I don't want to follow the rules. I want to do my own thing. You know what I mean? I want to do things my own way. And that's met with some resistance. And this isn't, you know what I mean? This is obviously like set back in the day. You know what I mean? This isn't like in modern times where it's okay. There's a system in place. There's a way that things are done. There's a social, when you're royalty, there's a certain level uh, of a way things have to be, a certain status quo that has to be upheld. And she's breaking through all of that, and her mom, the queen, is just kind of like, yo, you're messing with the program. Like, you're being rebellious for no reason. You know what I mean? And it's like, stop behaving this way and be a good princess. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, that's not who she is, and she just shows that off. And her hair is wild and curly and bright and fiery red and or orange, whatever you wanted to say. It just clearly shows off in her on the outside as much as in the inside. You know what I mean? It shows off who she is. And so the rest of the movie, the rest of the movie is really just trying to repair that mother-daughter relationship. And they do a great job because they make the mom a bear. And it's impossible for the mom to, like, argue with her daughter when her daughter's the only one that can speak and the mom's a bear. You know what I mean? And so it just kind of, like, if the mom is so stubborn, if she's so stuck on like having Merida be this perfect princess, then let Merida show who she is so that the mom can't like question it. She can't even like talk back, or she can't even, you know what I mean? She can't fight it. She's just going to see who her daughter is. And then throughout the rest of the movie we see that like it takes that time for them to mend their relationship. It takes that time for them to really bond and become properly like a good mother and daughter, you know, and a new and happy place that they weren't before, in a way that you know, I feel like she couldn't really behave as, or they just weren't as open to it when they first started the story. And so essentially the mom becoming a bear works as a good way of like, obviously Merida went to that witch to kind of be like, yo, like, you know, um I don't want to have this like, you know, typical like stereotypical like story in my life where it's like my fate is already decided. I'm already like, I want to change. I want to decide my own destiny. I want to decide my own fate, you know, my own ways, my own life and things like that, you know. And the witch then gives her the thing to transform her destiny or whatever. The little what is it? That little cake or whatever it's called. It's like a little dessert thing. And by the way, that's not me like hold on. I don't know if you guys can pick up on that the noise that kind of like sounds like a little bit of a hum. That's not me like farting or anything. That's just my chair. I'm kind of twisting and turning while I talk. But anyways, hold on. Let me see if I can pick it up. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? No, maybe not. Okay, whatever. Anyways, I'm just gonna keep on going. That's just the chair. That's not me. Anyways, she eats that little cake or whatever, that I forget what it's called, but she eats that little thing, and then she turns into the bear, and that's the changing of it all. That's what was supposed to happen, and that's what the, you know, the whole thing was leading up to, you know, that new change of fate. And because of that, it, you know, they went down on this journey, on this road, to kind of figure out how to break the spell. How do they get the mom back to normal? And by the end of it, when she returns back, it's everything's different now, you know what I mean? They've really grown to love one another, and it needed to be that way. Especially when it's like, you know, when you have such big feelings for somebody else, you know what I mean? Whether it's your parents, a partner, or a friend or something like that, like when you have big feelings towards them, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, sometimes you're like, all right, let's give each other space to cool off. But in this case, it's like, it's more so putting them together is what will make them feel more. And whatever they feel is what's supposed to be happening, is what they're supposed to like understand about one another. So Merida and the queen, they have such strong feelings for one another, but they don't really talk about it in the right way, or they don't really like explain it to each other, the, you know, the way that we would assume like healthy people would. I mean, so it's really like, how do you fix, you know what I mean? How do they fix their relationship? How do they really communicate, or how do they really get to know what the other person is feeling? And it all comes down to like just being vulnerable with each other, being able to talk about who they are, or show off who they are, what they feel about one another, and what do each other really mean to one another. And fixing that family tapestry and doing the whole thing is kind of just the real kind of like, that's kind of like a physical thing that you can kind of see of like, oh, they're mending their relationship. But it's not until Merida speaks the truth and begs, you know what I mean, is like, she wants her mom back, that's when she transforms and stops becoming the bear, and ultimately kind of like saves their relationship. They come back, you know what I mean? And now they're both where they're supposed to be, you know what I'm saying? They're both in a better place than what they were. And then they start being mother and daughter, like a happy relationship, you know what I mean? And one of the things I think that this movie does very well and does a really good job of is it makes it so emotionally cathartic for the women, but it also makes it so physically like what's it called? It makes it physically challenging for the men, if you will. You know what I mean? So it's like the men deal with like the external threat, which is like there's a bear, you know what I mean? The bear's on the loose. And then the real threat is the relationship between mother and daughter for them. So it's like, yeah, the men are preoccupied with the physical force, or they're doing what they think is what's supposed to like help the situation, but the women are actually doing the more emotional and the intelligent thing. And I thought that was such a brilliant way of like dividing the quote unquote dividing the genders, which is that like while the women are focusing on their emotional needs, or they have this really healing and emotional moment, the men are tackling what they feel like is the physical threat and using their strength or their power to kind of like deal with what's going on, but that's not the real issue. You know what I'm saying? So, if this were a different movie, like a father daughter issue, like obviously those two sides of the coin would mess everything up. But because it's a mother daughter, and then you have all of these men, it's like, well, what do you do with all of these guys? Well, they have to attack the bear, they have to fight the bear, they have to face this physical threat, this challenge of their power, if you will. And the women, they have to look more inward, you know what I mean? They have to face more what's inside, what's actually eating at their relationship. And I thought that was a great, a great split, a great divide. It's not about strength, it's not about power for women. It's about healing, and it's about emotionally connecting with, with other women, you know what I mean? With their mom, with their family, you know what I'm saying? And then the men are just, yeah, you know what I mean? They're trying to flex, they're trying to kill, they're violent, they're just going nuts for no reason. They don't know what the full story is. And rather than listen to his daughter, he just locks her in a room and is like, for your own safety, stay over here and stuff like that. Meanwhile, she has to do like all of the internal work to kind of set things up to make things happen. But anyways, that was a great piece right there. And then I just feel like in a way that's so completely different to what, like, comparing this movie to another really great princess movie, which is, well, I guess she's not a princess, but I mean, compare it to like a movie like Mulan. Mulan is like a father-daughter relationship, you know what I mean? She's going into the military pretending to be a man for her father because she loves her father, you know what I'm saying? And then Merida is trying to save her mother or get her mother to transform back because she loves her mom, you know what I mean? And just two completely different ways of conveying and telling the story, you know what I mean? One movie is like Mulan is trying to become, pretending to be a man, you know what I mean? And then the other movie is like rejecting masculinity and embracing kind of your, what makes you you, you know what I mean? Femininity, masculinity, all of it, you know what I mean? Embracing all of those pieces of who you are and genuinely like appreciating that, showing that off and not being afraid of it, and also being vulnerable with it, with your mom, you know what I mean? Showing that off to somebody who maybe disapproves or maybe wants you to be something else, but you are who you are. And until you show that off, or until you like really get to that point, it just feels like, a little bit of a, there's always going to be like a piece missing and stuff, you know? So anyways, Brave was really good. Again, I'm trying to think I don't think there's other Disney Pixar princess movies that I can think of. Princess Pixar. Hmm. No, I don't think there's any other Pixar princess movies. I'm trying to think. No, no princess. Yeah, wow. Okay, so that's oh wow, that's really good. I mean, comparatively, like there's not a whole lot of female led. Maybe no female leads. I mean, obviously there are some great supporting characters. No, excuse me, some great supporting female characters, like in The Incredibles with Elastigirl and Jessie and Dory, um, Eve. But yeah, wow, this is the first female led like Pixar movie until Inside Out. Oh well, then they do Finding Dory. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, so again, another groundbreaking for Disney Pixar. Obviously, Disney has done like the Disney princess movies. You know what I'm saying? But I'm talking more so like Disney Pixar. You know what I mean? That animated style. Wow. I mean, great story. I thought there was so much. I feel like they could do a sequel to this movie. I feel like there's so much meat on this bone. You know what I mean? I feel like there's so much to really chew on for this kind of story, for this kind of thing, and I can't think of another movie that really delves in deep on this sort of a topic or and the way that they portray and the way that they show it. Um, Off the top of my head, I can think of Lady Bird, but that's more live action, not animation. But I'm sure there are others. I just need to look, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I obviously made that Mulan comparison, but those are different for different reasons. Anyways, long story short, Brave, great movie. I think the title works very well. I think every single character was like I feel like they nailed it with Merida's design and her look, and I don't know. I think they really showed off like the restrictions on women, and at the same time like the mother daughter relationship was really emotional and beautiful. It also showed that like it takes two people to really like to come together to really get some things done, you know what I mean? To figure things out and, change, I think. But anyways, when you're watching Brave, you know what? Maybe think about like what you would do as a bear. Like how would you convey to everybody that you're, you know what I mean? Like I guess human. Although you lose your humanity like because you're a bear, you know what I mean? It's kind of tough. So, I don't know. Just think about what you would do if you were turned into a bear. I think I would probably like climb a tree and like maybe try to get some honey. But those bee stings would be I don't know. I've never seen a bear like get stung, but I imagine they're okay, right? Yeah, they probably walk that stuff off. Maybe I go in the ocean and catch some salmon. Yeah, that'd be cool, like in Brother Bear. Anyways, that's Brave. When you're watching it, think of yourself as a bear, what you would do, and I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.